an incredible and talented author, Raven West. So we are thrilled to have Raven West with us today to discuss her writing journey and the inspirations behind her work and her latest books like Vashti's daughter and Raven. Thank you so much for joining us today. So,
Sure.
how are you feeling now?
Thank you for having me. Good.
Okay, so are you ready for the
Yeah.
questions? Okay, so my first question is that what the inspired you to starting writing, and how did you being a journey as an author?
Well, before we get started,
Yeah.
I had something very serious
Okay.
to let your readers know.
Yeah.
Whether or not they're aware of this nightmare of guardianship abuse that's going on. One of the very famous actors, Anna Williams, has been in the news lately, and it was just reported on Newsmax.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you and your audience, this is not a new phenomenon. In fact, in my other life, if you can see this, there is a book that I wrote. It's called Rescuing Ruby.
Okay.
And it's about, this is a real adventure that took place in 2004,
Okay.
how I rescued my father from greedy cousins, thieving attorneys, and the Florida guardianship system. Now, if anyone knows elderly people, or they have someone in their family, or they're looking for advice on how innocent people who are not famous get caught up in this horrible legalized theft, please go online and order Rescuing Ruby by Robin Westmiller, JD. It's available at Amazon. The reviews have been wonderful. This is a 20-year-old case. Unfortunately, it is still ongoing horribly within the judicial system. So it's called Rescuing Ruby, how I rescued my father, who unfortunately ended up being murdered by the guardians. And my mom also died as a result, but it has a case-by-case detailed account of what our family went through, the horror, the nightmare, how they stole over $1.5 million from us, and how I was able to successfully rescue my father out of the grips of these horrible people. So, off the serious note, back to the fun stuff. What was your first question?
Yeah, I apologize for your loss, but
It's very important to get the word out, because obviously people are still getting involved in this horrible nightmare. Florida, New York, California. So, and take it from someone who's been there, did that, got my dad out, lost our home, lost our business, lost every penny that my parents worked for their entire lives, but they did not lose my parents. I got them out. Yay, Robin Hood, Raven West. Now, back to the fun stuff.
okay. So my first question is, can you share about background and how it influenced you to writing style?
Sure. I've been a writer since I was 7 years old. I've always had creativity and wanting to write stories, but I hadn't really thought about actually writing a book until the unfortunate event that my best friend, Mary Ellen, either fell or was pushed out of her window in 1985 and died.
Okay.
One of my motivations for writing is an emotional outlet. So the first novel I wrote was called Red Wine for Breakfast. And this came out actually, I was trying to see if you could see there. It's behind me. Red Wine for Breakfast is a story about a Los Angeles radio station. The main character's best friend, who was patterned after my best friend. So in the story, I was able to create a scenario where it gave a reason why and what happened to her fictionally, because we still don't know. all these years later, 30 years later, what exactly happened to her. But that was what motivated me to write the first novel. And this is going way back before print on demand, before the internet, before anything, way back in 1999. So at the time, we owned a stationery store. So I just started printing out the book by myself. And I sold it for $10. We were right next door to a copy center. So I printed it out on my HP LaserJet using WordPerfect. Thank you, thank you. And I walked it across and I made up a cover and walked it across to the copy shop, and they made me, copies were like $5 a piece. I would sell them at my store, not knowing anything about publishing whatsoever. But Red Wine for Breakfast, my novel, it really took off through, you see the history of this book. It was ended up being published by 9 different publishers. Okay. Way back before I was one of the first authors of our universe, of the print on demand. It was a whole history. So that was my first book. The second one that I wrote is called First Class Mail. You can see this one. Yeah. There you go. Now, it was a very interesting story about that one as well, because at the time, I was writing a monthly column for an online magazine called Amazing Author Showcase. It was called On the Road to Riches, which is also, it's on my website. All the short stories about publishing and things that people are going through. So I'd gone to a meeting, and it was a meeting of romance writers. And this lady said she was starting a new romance magazine. Would I like to contribute a 2,000-word short story for the magazine? I said, oh, it's a great idea. I have this idea in my head about a postmaster, writer, district attorney, and I wrote it out and I sent it to my publisher of Amazing Author Showcase, and she said, this is a really great first chapter of your new book. And I went, what new book?
So we can suppose that your all books is on the basis of the real stories and nightmares that you have experienced.
Well, First Class Mail, because I worked for the post office, and the hero of the story is actually someone who I worked with in the postal service. So everything that's in this book started out a 2,000-word short story. Yeah. It ended up a 96,000-word novel. Okay. Because the Postal Service, especially in the U.S., has terrible press, really bad. And I had, as I said, a really good friend. So he became the hero of First Class Mail. A hero postmaster, who would have thought? Yeah. And a writer, and a district attorney who was actually supposed to be just a throwaway character, the girl's ex-husband. And as many of you writers are aware, you're writing something and then you get a signal of stuff coming in. Well, my little part-time throwaway guy turned out to be a major character because his voice said to me, I want to be in the book. I'm going, Mark, you can't be in the book. I don't know anything about the law. He's a district attorney. You're not going to be in the book. Well, he kept insisting, no, understand, this person doesn't exist, okay? So he got this whole storyline, and I'm going to be putting him in my next novel as well, even though the poor dude's dead. But everything in my life, all my novels, I have 4 of them, part fact, part fiction, part fantasy. And it also gives a spotlight to businesses, organizations, and professions nobody really writes about, like a postmaster, the New York State Postal Association. So it's got a lot of fun, the usual sex, drugs, rock and roll, and
yeah.
So that was book number 2.
Okay. Can you tell that how do you balance your life and your writing career?
How do I do what?
Yeah, can you tell about your personal life and your writing career, how you balance both at once?
Well, writing is an inspirational for me.
Okay.
I'll be sitting there doing something, and then an idea comes at me.
Yeah.
And I've got to grab a pen. I got to grab a piece of paper. I've got to write it down. I have notes here all over the place. It's the concentration and the time. If you know anything about the time warp of computers, you'll sit down at 12 o'clock. 2 hours later goes by and it seems like 5 minutes. I wish I could write as fast as I read, but it doesn't work that way. It's
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people who they say I have to write every day and they plan out a specific time to do the writing, and that's good. But for me, it's when that inspiration hits and the keys start going and plots start coming in and my characters start talking to me and it takes off a different direction. One of the things that I found was very helpful several years ago, I joined the Novel in a Month, November novel, where you sign up to write 50,000 words in a month, which is 2,000 words a day. Not the best words you can write. It's more like a first draft thing, but it's a really good exercise and a personal challenge to say, okay, I'm going to do 2,000 words a day. I haven't done it in a long time because I'm
Yeah.
working full time. I don't have the time to do it. But the
So,
stories, the inspiration, the ideas, they come at you from all over, and you got to get a pen, you got to get a piece of paper, you got to get something to get those words out. So it's semi-spiritual, maybe, I don't know, but yes, it's definitely not a scheduled event, at least as far as my rhyme writing goes. Yeah.
yeah. So, okay, so I have a few written, few hardest question for you. Let's see a different side of you and maybe share enough with our audience. So, can you tell what is the most unusual piece of advice that you have received about writing?
Advice I've received, don't talk to me about other authors you've read.
Yeah.
Oh, have you heard this? I go, no, I don't read other authors. Or someone will say something, oh, you're the next, Daniel Steele. I go, no, I'm the first Raven West. And the best advice that I ever received from a fellow writer was just write. Don't be concerned about the marketing. Don't be concerned about the end game of getting it out there, making a million, whatever. That marketing side of it is a completely different business. It's also a completely different section of your brain. So if you want to write, you write. You
Yeah.
write when you can, whenever you can. If you're focused on it, that's what you do. And the rest of it will happen eventually. But if your idea is that you're going to become rich and famous or because of, don't even go there. If you are a writer, it isn't something that you do, it's something that you are. And that is the best advice I ever received. And I tell everyone, it's like a painter or an artist.
Yeah.
It's what you are. It's not what you do. So if I tell people I'm an author, I said, oh, that's really great. And I'd like to be, I'd love to write books. Do you have any advice for me? Yeah, don't talk about it. Don't go to writers groups. Don't go to conferences. Don't waste your time doing anything else but writing. And once that book is finished, once your baby is born, then you take it to the world and you hope the world likes your baby. That's pretty much the best advice I can.
Yeah.
Do you are you a writer? Do you write, or what do you do?
Yeah, I'm also a writer about the finance and the cryptocurrencies, which is my favorite way. I'm also an
Yeah.
investor and a finance advisor. I also a career counselor. I do.
You do, yeah, you multitask. Okay, I know what that's like
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, you can tell me I'm multitasker. Yeah. Okay. So let's move from our other question. If you were a character in one of your books, so what the role do you think do you would we play?
I'm in all my books.
Yeah.
I'm in every single one of my books. It's not. Yeah, the other people, some of my novels are about people who I know, and I have a t-shirt that said, I'm a writer, be careful what you say to me, it'll end up in a book. And I can pinpoint who
Okay.
I know I've patterned real people after, but all the female main characters of my novels pretty much are me, different aspects of my personality. Who else would I write about?
Yeah.
And some have a, happily ever after ending, and some have not so much an ending. They're strong, independent, intelligent women dealing with difficult situations, usually brought forth because of men, and
Okay.
figuring out how to succeed. And of course they do, because here I
Yeah. So,
am.
my next question is, uh, what book marketing techniques you have proven most effective for you and why?
Well, as you and your listeners probably know, the publishing industry has changed dramatically
Yeah.
since I started. It's a heartbreak, especially for new writers who want to get out of the herd. I said, go on my website, ravenwest.net. The articles that I wrote, Breaking Free from the Herd, it's also on my blog, ravenscorewest.com. Um, but the whole idea is 90% of super successful writers nowadays, it's luck. Somebody might see your work online, it's going out there. The number after, I don't know if you remember way back when Steve Jobs walked on the stage and he had his iPad and he says, this is where the new writing's going to be. And I looked at that and I said, this is going to change publishing forever. And when I started marketing Red Wine for Breakfast, I had an agent. She sent the book out to 10 publishers, 8 of which are no longer in business now.
Okay.
The thought that if you're a writer and you get a publisher or you're going to get a publicist, you're going to go out and do book signings. Well, forget about that. Obviously, COVID killed a lot.
Yeah.
I would go to book signings at Barnes and Noble and Borders. Well, Borders is out of business. 90% of bookstores, either they're out of business or they no longer do book signing events unless you're already a famous author. Nonfiction, 100 times better, easier to sell than fiction, especially if you work for Fox, because all Fox hosts, they have to publish their books. So, #1 bestseller. I said, okay, I mean, totally different. Rescuing Ruby is nonfiction. I wrote it under my legal name, Robin Westmiller, JD. It's a very specific area. It was doing really, really well. Every time I hear this thing about the Guardians, I'm going, yeah, okay, been there, did that. Fiction writing is very difficult.
Yeah.
In today's society. It's people like you who I get an email from and say, hey, you want to do an interview? I go, yeah, who are you? I have no idea. Let's do it. It's just, again, for an author or a writer, especially if you just are getting started in this business, write the book first. Yeah. In fiction. Nonfiction, you can sell nonfiction on spec. Just because nonfiction is a very specific area. So if you have a book about science, you can do the outline and you can send a spec to an agent who will show you exactly where to go. But fiction is a totally different animal. It used to be you could mail, good old mail letters, mailing out things for your query letter. Now everything is on the internet. You fill out a form. It's now a query form that goes out to the agents, and then you get this wonderful letter back template. They all use the same one. Oh, it's really great, but we're not really looking for that right now. Good luck to you, blah, blah, blah. But what I found that, again, Vashti's Daughter, my new one that just came out, I want to talk about. The main character is a publisher. So a lot of my experiences in the publishing business, with the book business, is incorporated into the story.
Yeah.
My favorite events that I went to was BEA, Book Expo America. I was in New York City twice and here in LA. They're gone. The book is, the only one that's still alive and kicking is the Los Angeles Times Festival of Books here in LA. It's out here in April. But where authors could meet agents, publishers, and distributors, which is the number one key, and as you may or may not know, Costco, which is a huge warehouse store out here, they've eliminated all of their books. They used to have tables in the stores where you could buy books at discount prices. They decided books aren't selling. And it's really hard. Personally, I guess it's our generation, my generation. We like to sit down with a good book, feel those pages, absorb yourself into the story, make that story part of your life. You do not get that same feeling on an iPad. You don't get that same feeling even on the internet. It's tactical. And hopefully at some point in the future, it might go back to those good old days. Be that as it may, I have 4 novels and a memoir and a collection of short stories that are finished, published, they're out there. And what I'm finding so amazing, when I wrote Vashti's Daughter, if your audience is aware, in the Bible, there's a story called the Book of Esther. Okay. And in the Jewish religion, every year we celebrate Purim, which is a big, huge, it's like Halloween, we dance and everything. And in the Book of Esther, she is the heroine. When I was growing up, I dressed as Vashti, because in my brain, Vashti was the hero of the story. I look at it as a story. Yeah. Because she was the one that told the king, I'm not dancing naked for your drunken friends, which led to her getting kicked out or killed, whatever the story is. But if she hadn't done that, there wouldn't have been no Esther, there wouldn't have been no Purim, et cetera, et cetera. So I had this idea 10 years ago, and I did it as a novel in a month. And I threw it all away because it sucked. But I had this idea that there's this woman who is a book publisher in New York. It's right before her 30th birthday, and she comes to work, and there's a manuscript on her desk called Vashti's Daughter. And she gets really ticked off because we all know you don't do unsolicited manuscripts for publishers, so she throws it away. And then she goes to a Purim party and has this dream where she's back in time and everybody's calling her Anna. She turns out to be the reincarnation of Vashti's daughter. So through this whole, and then she goes back into the present, and then the manuscript keeps showing up. It shows up at her office, at her home. It shows up in her car. And she keeps throwing it away, and it keeps coming back. And it turns out through all of this interaction, she starts speaking Farsi. She starts she starts writing in a different language and becoming this character from 366 BCE. And then she meets the author of the story, who is the direct descendant of Queen Esther. She finds out she's the reincarnation of Vashti's daughter, and there's this whole thing that goes through the story as to what happened to Vashti, why she did what she did, and how my main character, Anna Stein, finds out that she's cursed. Yeah. All her generations are cursed, never to be able to find love in her entire life. That's why her relationships all suck. And you talk about inspiration. That line actually came from an ex-boyfriend of mine. After I broke up with him, he was so mad at me. He said, "You're never going to find love again. I'm your only person. You'll never have it in your..." He said that to me. And of course, that curse was broken by my now husband of 44 years. But I said, what a great way to take this curse and put it into the story. And that's why this woman is having such a difficult time. The other instant thing that I do in all four of my stories, there's two specific items in all of my books. The first one is Raven West's #1 rule of life. You always keep a bottle of champagne in the refrigerator, because you never know when you're going to have something to celebrate, and you don't want to be without champagne. So in all my stories, there's a bottle of champagne in my refrigerator right now, and all my kids. That's #1, because you could have an amazing thing happen, and you want to celebrate, and you go in the refrigerator, where's the champagne? So there's always champagne. The second thing that I won't give away what it is, it's called the socks test. Like pair of socks people wear, and it's very specific test. It's called the socks test. Again, it's in all of my stories. I work it in, no matter what the story's about. If you know what the socks test is and what it means, I'm not going to tell you. You got to read the book. Okay. So I like connecting different aspects of my books together. So if you see something in one, my characters are not, although the one that I'm working on now, the character of the district attorney, Mark Greystone, is going to be in Aliens of the Universe versus Earth, where they land in New York, and this guy comes out of the spaceship, and he says, with a briefcase, he says, "Take me to your lawyer." And aliens sue the Earth for defamation, and they win, and they conquer the Earth through the courts. Yeah. That's because I have a law degree. I got to do something with it, right? So I'm working on that one. So this is Vashti's daughter. Let me see if you can see the. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, and I had this fantastic guy. Oh, there it is. Yeah. He did the cover for me, and just by what I told him what the story was about. The modern gal being the reincarnation of the gal from the past, and he did this. I am not creative like that at all. I can do stick figures. I can write about how great that cover is, but that's as far as my creativity goes, I have to say. But this story surprised me by the reviews that I received. And of course, it's on the website, on Amazon. The reviews are amazing. People were picking up the theme of women empowerment, women's strength. And I'm reading this going, really? Okay, I didn't really think that was, I knew it was there. And the reviews were just amazing. So again, there's a lot of how do you get this publicity for it? It is a Jewish theme with Purim, and there's Judaism in there, but it's not religious, because Purim is not a religious holiday per se. But every time I had 3 daughters, and every time we went to a porn party, we were Vashti, and we were laughed at, and we were ridiculed, and we loved it. So, yay us.
So,
They were rebel here.
yeah, we are almost at the end of the interview. But
Is this gonna be posted somewhere where I can put it
yeah,
on my website?
we will post it on our website and YouTube too. So,
Okay, great.
other social media platform like Facebook and Instagram also.
Oh, you send me the link.
Yeah, I will send you all those links.
Great.
Yeah, and before wrapped up this interview, I like to ask a final question to you that if you could give one piece of advice to writers, to be new writers trying to get published, what would that you advise to be?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Just anywhere, any place, anytime. Don't think about it. Like, as I mentioned this before, don't look into the future of the marketing and who you're going to, go to. Just if you are a writer, not if you want to be a famous author and all that. Same thing with acting. Actors, they hone their craft, they go out on auditions, they work really, really hard. As a writer, it's very you're doing it by yourself. I wrote a piece called The Loneliness of the Long Distance Writer, which was talking about writing compared to the Olympics.
Yeah.
And nobody's cheering us on. We get that one really great sentence and we go, yes, and there's nobody around. It's very hard to, unless you're talking to another writer, to share that excitement of the written word. Forget iBots and ChatGPT, whatever. I have to have my words from my head to my arm to the pen. Everything flows this way, even better than typing it on a PC. But it's in your gut. When I finished First Class Mail and I finished that last chapter, I literally was not on this chair. I was floating. I was up here.
Yeah.
My whole body just felt like it wasn't even in the same planet. You get so involved with your characters and your people. Don't be afraid if you have something that you're planning for your character to do and your character doesn't want to do it. Don't be afraid to take it to a different direction. It happens all the time. Have fun with it. Enjoy the process. Don't let anyone tell you can't. Everybody can write. Everybody does. Just enjoy it. And with Amazon right now with their KP, you can do your own book publishing and you can do the marketing. Your royalties are greater. The ability to get into bookstores, libraries is a little more limited. But if you want it badly enough, you can do it with a minimal amount of financial interest, but just don't even think about that. If you have an idea, sit down and just write. There's your advice from someone who's got notes sitting here all over the place with this really good story in my brain until it starts screaming to get out. Get out, get out, get out. But that's the best advice I can give you to any person who has the passion to do this. Do it. And let all that other stuff and who's your publisher and marketing until you get the end written on the final chapter, and then you go back and you edit it, re-edit it until you get it to where and then reread your story. I love my books, not because I wrote them, because I keep reading them and I reread them. I go, oh, I wrote this, amazing. Enjoy the process. Yeah. Don't be the journey, not the goal. Enjoy the journey. That's my advice to anyone who's listening to my brilliance after 25 years. Yeah, I'm also. And again, I was going to say my website is ravenwest.net. My bio's there. My entire life is there. My blog is on there as well. I'm not as internet savvy. I don't know a tweeter from a tweet. I don't know hashtag from hash browns. I'm old school. I have a website that I do myself. I have a blog that's all nicely connected. So please, and if you are involved with the guardianship mess or you want to learn more about the guardianship nightmare, please read Rescuing Ruby. It's definitely worth the $10 it'll
Yeah.
it's a horrible, horrible nightmare that I was hoping would be over after 20 years, but apparently not. So reality has a tendency of sneaking into your brain when you least expect it. So there's my pearls of wisdom for you. Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thank you, and I'm also take your advice for my next
Yeah,
book.
there you go.
So,
let
Raven,
me know let me know how it goes for you. And keep in touch. I only use that WhatsApp chat because you mentioned it. I don't really use
yeah,
that much. So if you, my email is raven@ravenwest.net. Again, it's on my
yeah,
website.
I will
My
keep
whole
in
life
touch
story.
with you. Yeah. So, Raven,
Or I did want to ask you before you go. How did you find me to do the?
from your Facebook, actually my
Ah,
marketing team is working on it, so I don't have ideas how they find you, but
oh,
mm,
I've been found. Hey, hey, every little bit helps, right?
yeah.
It's all good.
Okay. So, Raven, thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing even more amazing work from you and in future. So, that's end of this interview. So, best of luck with your writing journey, and you are an amazing author.
All
I'm
right.
trying
Well,
to see you.
thank you so much.
Yeah,